Hi, I'm Kim Tasso, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the power of stories and share some ideas on how to create and tell great stories to help you in business. Now, you can see that I've come out of my office and I'm in my library today, actually by the kids' books and the general fiction, not the management and psychology sections. Okay, so first of all, why is storytelling so important? Well, there's a famous piece of research that shows stories are 22 times more likely to be remembered than facts and figures alone. So people retain stories. Another reason is because stories are very engaging. They connect with people emotionally that perhaps other material might not. And emotions are really important because they're how our memories are stored. And so that goes back to the point about them being memorable. If a listener identifies with a story or some aspect of the story, there's some stuff that goes on in the brain. Like there's the release of really good chemicals like dopamine, and the neurons in the brain start kind of coupling with what's going on in the person who's telling the story, and the brain starts to mirror what's going on there. So then they can integrate the information into their own stories and views of the world. Most people find that stories are a great way to persuade people or help them change their mind. Some types of communication, you're telling people and pushing the information out, whereas a story, because people engage, it's more of a kind of a pull people into the story, and so they can kind of put their own spin on things. And in these days of digital revolution, there's tons and tons of information and data out there on everything, but what people really crave is knowledge and wisdom to make sense of all that data. And of course, stories are the original way in which we communicated, in every culture. This is how our ancestors transmitted explanations and taught people how to behave in their environment. So that's why stories is so important. So what makes a good story? And again, I've written lots about different types of story structures and techniques, and reviewed books on storytelling. So here's a few of my kind of key thoughts. I guess the starting point, like with most communication, is to use empathy, to put yourself in the shoes of those listening to your story, rather than focusing purely on what you want to say. Think about them and what they want to hear and why they should listen and what they'll get out of the story. And the second thing, I suppose, is to think about your aims. What are you trying to achieve with your story? Do you want to create a feeling? Do you want to change behaviour? Do you want to create attitudes? What's the transformation, if you like, you're offering? A third area is about being authentic, being the authentic you. And of course, I mentioned earlier on about the importance of emotion. Your story has to have some emotion in it, some real emotion from you, the storyteller. And there are two parts in creating a story. The first part is the content, what the story is about, what happens to whom and what was the outcome. And the language, of course, is very important. And there's something about using lots of words to engage different senses, so sights, hearings, sounds, smells, touch. So the listener can really imagine themselves in your story and kind of visualize it. The other key part is how you tell the story, and imagine the difference between someone that's really monotone versus someone who's quite animated. And I thought I'd do an experiment here and try and show you an example. So one of my favourite storybooks, Selfish Giant. So let me read a bit first of all in terms of monotone, and then how we might do a story. So the monotone version goes: every afternoon as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. It was a lovely large garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in autumn bore rich fruit. Okay, reading it fast. Now let's try a different approach to reading this. Every afternoon as they were coming home from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop in their games in order to listen to them. How happy we are here, they cried to each other. So how you tell and deliver the story is pretty important. There's a wonderful saying by Maya Angelou who says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you do, but you will never forget how you made them feel. She also said on storytelling, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. So anyway, some great quotes there. It might help to use a template to guide the creation of your story, something like the hero's journey. And again, I've written about this on some of the blogs if you want to look it up, or the dramatic curve, and there's lots of other structures. And Disney obviously is brilliant at doing this. So I thought to demonstrate the hero's journey as a structure for your story, here's the genie lamp, which is pretty critical in the story. So think about Aladdin. He's our hero and he has a character flaw. He's a bit unlikely as a hero and he's a sort of street urchin with lots of imperfections. He has a quest and enabling circumstances. Now, Aladdin wants to marry the princess, but Princess Jasmine can't marry someone unless it's a prince. The hero's ally in the film, of course, he has a pet monkey called Abu, is his kind of ally. There's an opponent, the ferocious Jafar, and he recruits this diamond in the rough to go and retrieve the magic lamp from the cave. Then there's a life-changing event. Once he gets the lamp in the cave, he forgets the rules or ignores them because he's naughty. But he escapes on a magic carpet and he finds the genie, comes out the lamp, who grants his wishes, turn him into a prince, make him rich so he can marry Princess Jasmine. Then jeopardy. Jafar gets the lamp back and Aladdin loses everything, but Aladdin tricks him to becoming the genie into the lamp and he releases the genie, and the resolution of the story is that the rules change so that Aladdin can marry Princess Jasmine and live happily ever after. Yay! There are all different types of structures and approaches to help with crafting stories, and again, some of them are outlined in the blogs. And these days you have to think about your story going through all manner of channels. So, you can write a story, you can read a story on a podcast, you can, act out a story in a video. So think about the different channels and the different methods of telling your story. And I thought, just if you indulge me, I'd finish with one of my stories because I have to show you that I think about these things. So this was a story about a critical incident in my early career, although I didn't know about it at the time. So decades and decades ago, I had a great job running the press office at Honeywell Computers. After working for two other leading tech companies, I had this beautiful office, near the top of this really shiny office block in West London, and it's really kind of distant and quiet up there, away from all the roads, a beautiful view. And the job was busy and exciting. And one day I saw an advert for an essay competition in a newspaper. And the essay competition said, write a 800-word essay on how to market a major management consultancy. You can win a weekend in Paris or Amsterdam, but basically we're trying to recruit a marketing manager and the salary range was ridiculous. It was like 10 to 20,000 or something. Anyway, so I rather arrogantly thought that I was a good writer and I could write this essay, although I knew nothing about management consultants at the time. So I sat down and wrote it and sent it off, and then I forgot about it, and I went back to my job, which is, ferrying journalists off to, manufacturing facilities and, going to launch, smart cards and PCs and things. And then I got a call from that accountancy firm, and surprisingly, the call was from someone I knew, a guy called Chris. He'd been a director at one of the software companies I worked with before, Logica, and he was now a partner at this accountancy practice. And he said to me, you'll be interviewed by another partner. So we fixed up a time and a date. Anyway, so I went along to the city on the train and, off to Shoe Lane, just off Fleet Street, which as a press manager was really exciting being in Fleet Street. Anyway, now I made a serious misjudgment of character because as the person who's going to interview me, his office was really kind of tucked away at the back of the Beyond of right at the building. And I thought, he's a rather mature and stern gentleman. Who's going to interview me. I bet he's someone who's kind of been moved sideways and has picked up marketing as his pet project. Anyway, so he started the interview with, despite your essay starting with a split infinitive. Actually, at the time, I tell you, I didn't know what a split infinitive was. I really bristled. So I was a bit spiky back in responses. And then at some point he asked me, which newspapers I read. And I was really sassy. And I said, well, actually, as press manager, I have to read all the newspapers. If you want to know about my political affiliations, why don't you ask the question directly? I was really spiky and really breathtakingly fierce, the young fearless me, not being upset by this older mature gentleman. And we chatted for about an hour and a half. Anyway, when I came out, Chris, the director partner I knew, he said to me, Kim, what on earth happened? He never sees people for more than 20 minutes. And I sort of made a face, and he says, it turns out this mature gentleman was in fact the managing partner of the entire management consultancy. So I'm absolutely mortified. My face goes really red and hot with embarrassment because I've really misjudged this, and I have been so kind of, not rude, but I've been really upfront and challenging with this chap, and I was kind of running through in my head all the things I'd said in this interview and kind of like slowly kind of crying inside how awful it was. Really challenging him on his marketing knowledge. Anyway, so I left and I was like, oh my God, I felt so bad about it. Anyway, the next day, I got a phone call to tell me that I'd won the competition, and they also offered me the job. So I had this fantastic weekend in Amsterdam where I got to go and visit all those amazing museums, a Rijksmuseum, and I got to ride on canal boats and I just got the fragrant tulip fields. So that was really good. And then I took the job at the company, which was Tusros in those days, and it's now known as Deloitte. Yeah, it's my first role in professional services marketing, where I've worked for ever since, decades. And I had a great job and we did great work and we did amazing things and achieved all sorts of targets and whatever. And that mature, stern gentleman who was my boss at the time, he became a good, strong mentor to me. And then actually after I left there and moved on, and over the years, he's remained a really good friend. Okay, so that's my story. What did you make of that? Did you connect with it? What did you remember? What components of story did you see in that? And more importantly, if someone said, what's your story? What would you answer? How would you tell your story? Anyway, thank you very much indeed for watching and listening.